With Ilia Topuria just defeating both Max Holloway and Alexander Volkanovski back-to-back, today I wanted to take a look at the UFC rankings and actually figure out who could possibly beat Ilia Topuria, whether that's somebody moving up from bantamweight, anybody from the featherweight division, or even the lightweight division. Even if just for fun we want to take a look at the welterweight division because Ilia Topuria has expressed interest in moving up to welterweight one day. We're going to take a look at all and just see who has a chance to actually defeat the guy who seems to be absolutely unstoppable now. Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. If you're new here, my name is Kyle. I am your guy with many YouTube channels. I want to start off over with the featherweight division. Let me bring you over to the UFC ranking site over here. Of course, we just figured out the number 1 and 2 contender, which is arguably the best back-to-back wins we have ever seen in UFC history in Alexander Volkanovski versus Max Holloway. Okay, obviously the potential is there for them to ever beat Ilia Topuria if there is another rematch. I don't think that Volk does, unfortunately. I think that Volk's chin's probably gone. Max Holloway, we really have to worry about, though. So I'm going to exclude these two. I'm going to exclude who Ilia Topuria already fought. I think that of everybody in the division, guys, it's probably Diego Lopez that has the best chance because I could see Diego Lopez really having an early onslaught over on Ilia Topuria. If not, has better grappling than Ilia Topuria. I just don't know because Ilia is so technically sound. I'm sure that he'll be able to find his shots on Diego Lopez, and I'm completely convinced of Ilia. I'm completely convinced. Like, I'd pick him to win against Diego Lopez, but the potential for Diego Lopez to get an upset win is absolutely there. He's that chaotic, he's that powerful, and he can absolutely contest with Ilia both on the feet and on the ground, and it is important to note, too, one day, probably down the road, Ilia Topuria is going to get caught because Ilia does get touched up in his fights, okay? We have seen him hurt before, and his face was even a mess against Max Holloway a little bit, right? But it just goes to show what an amazing fighter he is. Yair Rodriguez, he would get exposed on the ground. Movsar Evloev, okay? I think that people are underrating Movsar Evloev since his fight with Arnold Allen. I think that Movsar could certainly contest with Ilia Topuria, but at the end of the day, I do think that Ilia would just keep things on the feet and outstrike Evloev. Brian Ortega, the potential's always there with him snagging up some weird-looking submission, like just absolutely out of nowhere, but at the end of the day, I don't believe he beat Ilia Topuria. Arnold Allen and Josh Emmett, Josh Emmett we already saw, and that was horrible. Arnold Allen would just get completely pieced up. Aljamain Sterling wouldn't be able to get a hold of him. Calvin Kattar is way past his prime. Giga Chikadze, more of the same. Lerone Murphy didn't get fraud-checked, okay? I don't want to say he got fraud-checked, but he is not this killer that we were all kind of looking at him to be after the Barboza win. So I don't believe he'd be able to contest with Ilia Topuria on the feet. And Ilia, the problem with Ilia is he can bring you to the ground too. He is a very, very complete fighter. Dan Ige could always make things chaotic. Like, Dan Ige could be the guy to come in and be like the Nate Diaz, Conor McGregor of any division. If he steps in short notice, decides to land a bomb right, Dan Ige can fight against anybody. But of course, I'd pick him to lose, and Edson Barboza would get absolutely annihilated. Before we continue on, though, I want to talk about the bantamweight division because the potential for somebody to move up in weight is always there. I don't know who that would be, though, because all of these guys, if they were to go up against Ilia, I feel like Ilia would just beat him. Like, Sean O'Malley, I know, has expressed interest in the featherweight division. There was talks for Sean O'Malley versus Ilia Topuria for a long time before Sean O'Malley lost to Merab. I think Ilia would crush Sean O'Malley, especially what we just saw Merab do to Sean O'Malley. It wouldn't even be close. I'd have to see Umar size up against Ilia Topuria because judging by the last name, I would imagine he cuts a lot of weight. But again, I'm not so sure about that. Other than that, I can't really see anybody really going up in weight besides maybe Jose Aldo. But even then, Aldo would get pieced up at Ilia Topuria. He's not the same Aldo. He's still a fantastic fighter, but he's not the same guy. Now, let me bring you over to my camera's in the way over here, the lightweight division. I'll just switch a little bit of the scene over there. And this is where Ilia wants to go up. A lot of people, Dana White included, is very interested in potentially fighting Islam Makhachev. That's a toughie. That's a real toughie because I feel like Islam Makhachev would beat Ilia Topuria. I'd pick him. I would need to see Ilia Topuria survive in the lightweight division before I would pick him to beat somebody like Islam Makhachev because it is a whole division above. You have a lot of guys that are killing themselves cutting weight, and you do see every once in a while, like take Max Holloway, for example. He got knocked down by Justin Gaethje. As good of a performance as he got knocked down by Justin Gaethje. Dustin Poirier's power absolutely had an effect on Max Holloway. Well, the same thing happened to Ilia Topuria because Ilia Topuria, like I said, does get hit in his fights. He just has a chin, he has the heart, he has all the skills in the world to get the job done, but I need to see him take punches from guys like Oliveira, from guys like Gaethje, even a Dan Hooker. I would need to see him pass some sort of test there, okay? Islam Makhachev, I would pick to beat Ilia Topuria. Arman Tsarukyan, I would also pick to beat Ilia Topuria. This is where it gets a lot more interesting, okay? Charles Oliveira, I would say and again, this is just completely ballparking it because we haven't seen Ilia at lightweight. I think that's close to a 50-50 fight. I could see Oliveira crowding him, submitting him, and I could also see Ilia just outworking Oliveira. You know, I can see that one going both ways. Justin Gaethje and Dustin Poirier are both past their primes, and I would pick Ilia Topuria to get the job done over both of them, but the problem is they are so heavy-handed that I would need to see, again, Ilia Topuria pass that test. With Max Holloway, obviously, we just saw how that went, but it'd be interesting to see at 155 where Max Holloway doesn't have to do such a gruesome weight cut, and that could be why he actually had his chin finally cracked. The day was coming either way. Dan Hooker, he's just better than Dan Hooker. Michael Chandler, assuming that he hasn't lost a lot of his grit with these past couple of years that he's been off, he could make the fight chaotic enough that it would be a little bit overwhelming for Ilia Topuria, but at the end of the day, I still would pick Topuria. I'd pick him against Dariush as well. Gamrot would be an interesting grappling match, but I think Ilia is miles better than him on the feet. Fiziev, there's always the potential for him to catch him with something quick, right? But then Ilia Topuria is bringing that featherweight skill up to the striking level, so I don't really know. Moicano's a really weird one, because I feel like Moicano actually would be able to get a hold of Ilia Topuria. Again, the way that I would see a fight going with Renato Moicano would depend on how he goes in the lightweight division and sizes up against everybody. We don't want it to look like Alexander Volkanovski because he's also a short guy, right? Because Alexander Volkanovski was undersized against Islam Makhachev. If he's undersized against Renato Moicano, I'd actually pick Renato Moicano, especially with the role that he's been on. And obviously, he can't afford to lose, okay? Benoit Saint-Denis probably took way too much damage. Jalen Turner's huge, so I don't know how that would go. We need to see this down the road, though. Paddy Pimblett versus Ilia Topuria. We need to see that down the road. But unfortunately, Paddy would probably get brutalized, and he would beat Rafael dos Anjos. If Ilia were to ever move up to the welterweight division, obviously, it would be for a super fight against the title. So I'm only going to break down like Bilal Muhammad, Leon Edwards, maybe Shavkat Rakhmonov because he's probably going to be champion. You know what? I'm just going to do the top 5, okay? That's what we're going to work with. Wow, Colby Covington all the way down to 6. What's this guy doing, man? Okay? I would imagine that all of these guys are too big for Ilia Topuria. All of them are too big. All of them are too strong. That division is insanely tough, and I know that Ilia has more skill than all of them, but Bilal, Leon, Rakhmonov, Della Maddalena, and Sean Brady would probably all completely outwork him because if I'm worrying about these guys at lightweight, overworking him, because again, he's a little bit of a shorter guy, kind of like Alexander Volkanovski, you worry about it in this division, it's absolutely 100% going to have an effect in this division. So Ilia Topuria certainly has success in his future. And hear me out, guys, okay? I know he's unranked, and I know the fraud check hasn't happened, which it always could happen, right? I'm almost completely convinced of Gene Silva. I'm almost completely convinced. Like, those fighting nerds, guys, man, they are all the real deal. Like, I think Kyle Braujo is going to become a champion, and I think that Gene Silva just might have what it takes to make his way up the division and actually crack Ilia. The dude is so tough. It's unbelievable. Maybe that's something to consider. Maybe that's a call that I could have one day, but it is way too early in Gene Silva's career to kind of see how he's going to gauge against any of the top fighters going over here. But I think that he certainly has potential. Guys, who do you think can beat Ilia Topuria? I would love to know what you guys think in the comments down below, but we don't just have to talk about Ilia Topuria. Who do you think can beat Alex Pereira? If you want to talk about that, then check out this video right here, guys. I would love to have you over there. Take care.